Everyone, welcome to another episode of the Listen Up Accord. I'm happy to be with you again. This is our final episode, and a reminder that this is brought to you by the Division of Youth Affairs in collaboration with the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. Now, last week we had a very exciting conversation about choices, my choices, and this week we're going to continue that conversation and talk about my choice part 2, I have the power to choose. And to assist us in leading that discussion, we have some members from the U-Report team who will engage us. We're also reminding our audience that you have the opportunity to win prizes. This week we have an exciting dinner for 2 at Pure Ocean Restaurant, and that is going to go to the audience member who has the most interesting, exciting, invigorating comment on our social media pages. And just a reminder, you can find us at CBC Barbados, or you can find us at Div Youth Barbados on Facebook or Instagram. And I'm going to introduce my panelists to you. I'm very excited, they're all young. And first off the back, we have Khadija Bakharia, who is the co-lead of the communication and outreach aspect of U-Report. She is a writer and advocate for women's rights and youth development. She believes everyone's voice matters, and U-Report is the initiative that assists with that. Then we have Chade Smith, who's a Campus U ambassador, who has a passion for service. She sits as the events chairperson for the Young Economists Association and as the public relations officer for the Psychiatric and Mental Wellness Interest Group at the UE Capel campus. Then we have Danielle St, who's a youth leader with the New Testament Church of God. She's passionate about youth development, empowerment, and education. And finally, we have Michael Mayers, who's the lead for the technical team of U-Report and also a member of JCI Barbados. His passion is youth empowerment and development. So as you can tell, we have quite the lineup for you, and we'll take a short break and get straight into the conversation.
Finances, mental health, such entrepreneurship and such. But the thing too now, like when it comes to like mental health too, I just feel like a lot of young people right now they like scared to like talk about certain things they're going through. Even me myself, I have like certain time I go through certain things, and I might find it tricks to like embarrassing to like explain to certain people. Yeah, more like because of a male, I would say like a lot of females more would have like a motherly figure, like more people they can talk to. Me, I don't, not necessarily so much. The only people I can really talk to like that is like my mother. She lives in UK right now. She lives in the UK. So she's the only person I can really like sit and talk to. You get me? So. Well, I wouldn't say it's like the government problem. I would say it's like more like a people problem or the community problem. Because a lot of people look down on it or discriminate against people that actually have mental health. And that would make more people be ashamed to like try to get help. So I would say it's more like a thing that the people need to work on more than the government. Although the government can put in more like call centers or like certain things to help certain people come in, but it's just more of a people problem, I think. We would have to come together.
So thank you for joining us again. And as I said, we're starting this conversation in a very interesting place. We're looking at choices. Oftentimes we talk about young persons and say, you have the power to choose and young persons have the power of choice. But sometimes we have to dive deeper into the conversation about the social environments that our young people are growing up in that causes them to make certain choices or maybe forces them to make certain choices. Just to get those numbers and get an idea or get the thoughts around what is happening, we have You Report Barbados that assists with that. And I'm going to introduce Khadija to just tell us a bit about You Report Barbados, what the organization does, and how you came about to assist young persons in Barbados.
Well, I actually nominated Danielle to do that for us. So if that's okay with Danielle, if that's okay with you, can she give us a definition instead?
Sure, that's no problem. So, Your Report is a platform for young people where they get the opportunity to share their voices, where they get to speak up and speak out or tackle issues that affect them, problems that they think they want to hash out or talk about. Your Report is that platform where young persons get to share their voices. So, yes, we also have our social media pages where persons can speak out and talk about these issues, but we also create polls surrounding those issues that are very, very current and prevalent within society, within the world, etc. So, yes.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And we understand and we appreciate that those polls help us to get a very real idea about what's happening on the ground. Sometimes you're not able to see it directly, sometimes you hear about it, but when we get those hard numbers, those crunch numbers, it helps us to see what is really happening in a quantitative way, and that's an important part of social research. So one of the areas that I wanted us to discuss today is mental health. The mental health of our young persons. It's a very important issue. It's something that we all talk about. We throw it around. But today I want us, for a short while, to talk a bit about the mental health of our young people. What has been your experience as you report in assessing what the mental health of young persons are like? Khadija, I see you smiling. Chade, I'm going to throw it to you first. And then Khadija,
Sure.
I'm going to have you follow up after her.
Well,
Okay.
Shade or then Khadija, I didn't hear the name
Anyone is
properly.
Yeah.
Okay, Shade, go ahead.
Okay, great. So after reviewing this poll, I really have two main questions I want to focus on this afternoon. And the first question being, who do you run to when you need advice on mental health? And something very significant, and I found it very interesting, that 35% of persons, they run, you understand? And they're the fewer numbers when it comes to counselors and doctors, they're on the end of the on the spectrum as it relates to seeking guidance, like mental guidance. And I don't think that is something that we have to really look into. These persons would have went to school, study for long periods of time on how to handle these problems. But why are our young people not wanting to reach out to them? Are we actually creating a safe space for our young people? Or why do we find it better to seek advice from our friends? So that is something that I think that we really need to look into. As it relates to persons really creating safe spaces for them. And I know after hearing conversations from persons who go to secondary school, because I just left secondary school like a couple of years ago, but after having a discussion with some persons, they don't feel comfortable like going to guidance counselors and speaking. And why is that? Are we actually, so the question again that I'm posing, are we actually creating safe spaces for our young people? And I don't are and who are holding these guidance counselors accountable, or who are looking to see that these guidance counselors are actually doing what they're supposed to do? How many children are they seeing? So that is one question that really stuck out to me. Like, why are you in a specific practice and persons don't find it, and young people don't find it like necessary to speak to you, but rather speak to a friend? And if we also look at our Twitter spaces when it comes to like social media was another high percentage that persons will seek to get advice. Persons will run to social media because they know that somebody else on social media feels the same way. And a specific platform is Twitter. When you go on Twitter, you will see a tweet, and you know that you're feeling exactly like that tweet, and all you have to do is click a button, and it's so like mind blowing that you will go on there and you will see all over the world the region, internationally, feeling that exact same way as you. So, and another question that really stuck out to me was, do you know the suicide hotline? And a lot of persons said no. Actually, 88% of persons said no, they don't know the suicide hotline. And I think that what we need to do is start advertising the hotlines, the different hotlines, mental health hotlines, as it relates to young people in abusive situations. Who can I run to? So that's just a bit of statistics and stuff that I would have thought that were very important to know, coming out and analyzing these polls. Khadija, over to you.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I can tell that you're very passionate about this and you're providing us with a wealth of information. And I'm happy that you mentioned the suicide hotline. We know that within the last 2 years of the pandemic, we've had significant experiences, or we've gotten reports of young persons who found it challenging to navigate the stresses of at-home schooling. You know, sometimes, and as young persons, I'm young too, I'm only 22, we appreciate that getting outside of the home gives us a moment to breathe. And you have some young persons who are trapped in sometimes abusive situations, whether it's physical, mental, emotional abuse. Khadija, I just want you to share with us, what safe spaces do we need to provide for our young persons? What types of organizations or groups do we need to see coming about to help provide safe spaces for young people in Barbados?
But I like the fact that Chade also brought up the fact with guidance counselors. I think that's where we need to start first. I think the guidance counselors and the therapists at school, that's where we need to start, because most of our students, most of our young people spend most of their time at a school. They spend half of their life at school, and at school is where most things tend to occur, because you get bullied by students, or you get the stresses of school, homework or what's not, and that is where you need to start. So I think that's the first safe space that we need to provide as a society for young persons that might not have those safe spaces at home. Another thing I would like to mention is Let's Unpack It Co. They're an amazing mental health organization. I've been following them for a few years, and seeing their quotes, seeing their inspirations, it helps motivate me, and it helps motivate a few other people that I'm familiar with as well. Those spaces like that they go a long way. You might not think, based on the following or based on the likes of a post, you might not think they go a long way, but you don't have to like a post so much in order for it to be such a big help to certain people. So I think those spaces like that, and then having organizations such as, I can't remember any of the off the top of my head, but I know there's like family counseling unit and what's not that provide those spaces for individuals. You report, is this space for individuals? They're able to come, they're able to share what their experience is. I was taking a look at the mental health poll, and at the bottom there was a space where you could inform, I guess, society as to what you went through during, COVID and what's not. It's anonymous, thankfully, so you're able to provide that information to people so they can relate to you. Twitter was also that space. I like that Chade mentioned that as well, because I'm guilty of it. I would share my feelings on Twitter. Some people would, agree to it, relate to it, and that is, to me, that is such a significant space, because you get so much help from different youth advocates, different people from all around the world that you're not even familiar with, and it's such a big help for me especially. So I think those spaces, especially the ones in school, they need to be implemented as soon as possible.
Thank you very much, Khadija. I think that when you talk about your report being a safe space, that's important, because it brings into perspective the conversation about safe e-spaces. Not all our safe spaces have to be physical spaces. I think during the pandemic we were handicapped in the sense that, okay, a safe space used to be, for example, UILB would meet at St. Michael's School. That was a safe space that you could get away with, and now we don't have those physical safe spaces. We need e-safe spaces. I saw an interesting comment there about the ratio that Danielle mentioned. So in that line of conversation, safe spaces, we're hoping to provide our young persons with a way to diverge away from certain habits. It leads me into the space of thinking about how those types of communities can help support our young persons and steer them away from crime. Now, Michael, I know that one of your passions is youth and development. And so I'm going to come to you now to talk to us about those developmental areas, or the value you see in communities helping to provide young persons with other opportunities. So there's crime and violence, there's deviant behavior, but if we know that young persons are the sum total of their community, what do we then need to provide so that we can develop them in a wholesome way?
Okay, thank you, Pierre. Good evening to all viewers. Oh, I'm loving the question. I would say we need like the community centers in all of our districts, because I would say for mine, it's kind of outdated and it needs some updates. So I think when we get back to those community centers, we can really ensure that the youth in the communities interact and they have that safe space. Other than that, we need to look out more for the youth in our neighborhood. It takes a village to raise a child. So definitely we need to get back to those ways. Don't just ignore what you're seeing. Be there, be a guidance support to youth in our communities.
Thank you very much for that, Danielle. Sorry, Michael. And just within that space again, when we're talking about the community development, has your report then done, I think, polls to look at what types of areas young persons are interested in or what types of things or activities they're interested in, for example?
To answer that, Pierre, I would say no. But of course, if there is a need, your report can create a poll for that. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, so when we understand, and I'm glad you raised that point earlier about it taking a village to raise the child, Barbados as a community, we have a responsibility to raise our children. And I think over the last couple of years, we found less persons taking up that responsibility to raise their children. And I'm happy that organizations like your report are taking up that mantle in some way in an e-space to provide that type of support to our children. But continuing in a space of COVID-19, we went through that safe space conversation, we went through the mental health conversation, education. Now, you all are around the space where you're exposed in some way, at least I hope, to some form of learning. First, I want to find out from you. I'm going to go to Danielle. What has your experience been like personally in terms of navigating the online school at home during the COVID-19 pandemic, the lockdown period? What did that create for you? What opportunities did that create for you? What stresses did that create for you? And then I'm going to lead the conversation into a different way so that we can talk some more about solutions.
Yeah, no problem. I can actually speak from two different perspectives. One of actually being a teacher and the other of actually being a student. Because not only do I teach, but I'm also a student. So I'm studying as well. And let me talk from the student perspective. It has been a difficult transition because on the onset of the pandemic is when I was in my final semester at university, and it threw me for a loop. I am telling you, it was so challenging. It was not the norm, nothing that I was accustomed to, and it really showed up the areas where I was indisciplined, and it caused me to pay more attention to my indisciplined behavior and trying to change that. So the online space has caused me to be a tad bit more disciplined because obviously I have to be accountable for myself. So that was a big challenge for me at the beginning of the pandemic and navigating online school and stuff. But also, as time went on, as the pandemic, I guess, evolved, it would have changed because I got the opportunity to again become more disciplined, but find other ways or different solutions to cope with being online because it was like there probably isn't going to be anything called post COVID. So I need to live with learning online, right? And then also from the teaching perspective, it was, I guess, difficult for the students, obviously, just like me, because it was new. It was extremely difficult to deal with, and it was new, it was fresh. And this was something that not only did teachers have to learn about, but the students had to learn about it as well. And that caused a bit of a challenge initially. But I think after 2 years, persons are getting a better grip of the online space and learning in the online space. Obviously, there are still challenges, but there has been improvement, in my opinion.
Almost get accustomed to the online learning space. So taking it again and moving a little further, we know that some persons may not have had access to the same amount of resources. So you may not have had access to the computers, to the internet, to a tablet. Sometimes there was one computer per household. In your experience as a Your Report community, What were those numbers like in terms of persons who didn't have access to certain things or found it challenging to be at home during the COVID-19 period and try to navigate an online learning space?
Well, we did do some polls. Well, we did have an education poll, and we would have looked at the different areas where persons would have had challenges with the online space. And surprisingly, majority persons did share the fact that they had access to internet, that they did have access to devices and stuff like that. More than half of the persons that responded to this particular poll did indicate that they had access to the necessary tools and stuff like that. So yeah, that was some of the information. Just to get the statistics right, 87% of participants responded that yes, they have access to the internet, and also 81% of participants responded yes, that they have access to computers, laptops, tablets. And those are some of the statistics in terms of um, devices as well as internet connection issues or internet connection.
Okay, that's again brilliant information, and I'm really thankful for your report and providing this type of support to young persons in Barbados. But just before we continue conversation, we're gonna stop for a short break. I'm also reminding our audience members that you have an opportunity to win a prize. If you comment on our Facebook live stream, we're looking for the most interesting, invigorating, exciting comment. You can win a lunch for two. So we'll take a short break and come back.
Yes, I believe that they need a program for people, for the youth to express their needs because in this, with the economy growing, youth plays a lot of part because it's the youth that have to take over. And sometimes being the older generation would have run things different, the youth would have a brighter or a bigger aspect to how they think about stuff. And that would be a great way to have innovation. The young people be interested, I guess, like entrepreneurship in terms that they could know how to develop a business plan that will help them go forward in life. Topics that will cover in terms how to use like the technology or things that will help them progress from being an adolescent to an adult.
Welcome back to the Listen Up Accord. We're continuing our conversation and we have the U Report team with us. It was a very interesting video comment we got there just now where we were hearing a bit about what needed to happen for young persons, and you know, sometimes the older persons may not understand what needs to happen for our community. But luckily we have organizations like U Report who helps to pull together those numbers and help us to see in a quantitative way what is happening with our young persons on the ground. And the question raised earlier about what type of developmental programs do we need for young persons, what areas do we need to focus on. Just last year, the Ministry of Youth would have started a vigorous campaign about anti-violence and getting young persons to move away from that space. We know that some of you are involved in some organizations that help to create better habits. Khadija, I'd like you for a bit to talk about some of those organizations and how you think we can expand that type of activity to support young people.
When you said that, I knew you were gonna come to me because um, recently we just dropped our world obesity um, poll. We
Mhm.
dropped it just the other day. We had a program on CBC and it's called ACT. So feel free to message your report as soon as possible with the word ACT. I'm hoping that they drop the number in here because I can't remember offhand. But we're looking for more responders towards it, and it was, in my opinion, a very successful poll. I'm just having the statistics here. We had 100% agree to a policy, which I definitely agree that we need. I know it's been a challenge having this policy implemented, but we really need a policy implemented considering that school is opening back. Most and I can't remember statistics offhand, but we do need something that guides students to the correct foods to eat. I mean, you can eat as much as you want to eat, but eat at moderation as well. And it's better that you choose healthier choices than unhealthy choices. But we did have 100% agreement to policy, and I think that needs to be shared to the government. We need to be implementing this policy as soon as possible. It's extremely, extremely important. We also had 88%, and this poll was a very short poll, so it's quick and simple. I think it's only 2 or 3 questions. Feel free to go take it. It's really, really easy. So the next question we have was 88% believe in businesses should be more responsible for what they provide to students or to young persons. I remember on a discussion they had an example of the cereal boxes, and I can't remember who said the example, so forgive me. But it was the image on the cereal boxes. They look down on the children because they're not looking up at the adults, but they're looking down at the kids, and that encourages the kids. Okay, you know what? Look at that frosted flakes, man. He's looking at me. Maybe I should pick it up. These type of things encourage young persons to go more towards the unhealthier options than the healthier options. And then something that also needs to be looked at is the prices on these healthy options. I think I went into the market the other day and I really wanted this Go protein bar that I saw. It looked really good, but it was like $5-6, and I'm like, I'm paying this much just to be healthy. I think it was a bit it was a bit disappointing.
Mhm.
So organizations like these and polls like these will help implement policies that need to be implemented as soon as possible. So government, if you're listening, please see if we can act upon this policy as soon as possible.
And I do think we have some member of the government listening to us today. They're always listening to hear what young persons have to say about development in the country. I'm happy that you raised that point about the policy. It's very important for us to understand how predatory marketing works, how it targets our young people and leaves them in a state of disrepair, if I may so. And just looking again, do you have a relationship as you report with the ministries of Barbados? Is it that you take the information and can possibly share it to the Ministry of Education, share with the Ministry of Health? How does that collaboration work, if there is any? Or do you have plans for there to be that type of relationship between your report and the ministries of Barbados?
Well, if I may jump in here, I do remember, if all of you might know of the Protect Our Girls movement that we had just a couple of months ago, I believe. And it got so much attention that it definitely deserved. And from that poll, from that graphics being shared, we were able to get the attention of the minister. I think it was Minister Wilfred Abrams. At that time, he was the Minister of
Foreign
Home
Affairs,
Affairs.
yeah.
Of Foreign Affairs, right. Thank you for correcting me. So, yeah, so we were able to get that. And if you guys remember, that went so far. Those information, the whole, the partnerships we had with so many youth organizations, it went a long way. So I think I'm not sure if we directly have information, as I might not be aware of that because I'm just the co-lead.
Mhm.
But I think our graphics go a long way, and the ministry does get information. They do see the work that we've been doing. They do see the need for certain things. So I think that Protect Our Girls movement, that specific example, that is something to show that we have the ministry's attention.
That's interesting. That's a conversation we had last week. Protect our girls, abuse of children, and protecting children from abuse. And we spoke about the fact that there's some organizations that are out there to protect our young persons. So we have the Faith Marshall Harris helpline that children can call and report abuse if they're in those situations, or even neighbors can call. We have the Child Care Board as well, which provides that type of support. But what are your thoughts and views then about abuse or violence amongst young people? We know that sometimes there's a pipeline between being in violent situations at home and the children then living violent lives. So what are your thoughts about those possibilities, and what do you think can be done? Michael, I'm going to ask you to take this one.
Awesome. Thank you, Pierre. I was waiting. I just want to jump back very quickly. Apologies.
That's fine. That's fine.
So your report is implemented in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth and also UNICEF. So there is that collaboration there in place, and this data is shared in a public database. So anyone can go on and see the data there. It's anonymous, and of course, with the ministry that we have a collaboration with and UNICEF, we can share the full data with them, and that influences policy and planning decisions. So yes, so there is partnership there, and we're going to make sure to make a change by what young people say in our polls. Moving on to the crime and violence. So we did have a crime and violence poll. This was conducted in July 2021. So I just want to set the context here. Our first question was, is crime and violence an urgent issue in Barbados? And everyone said yes. 100% of respondents agreed. So this shows that the feedback from this poll will be relevant information because everyone is connected to this in some form or fashion. So just looking at one of the questions very quickly, we had asked, what is the most important factor for youth involvement in crime and violence? 26% noted lack of employment and job opportunities, and also lack of parental support and guidance. So when you think about it logically, you can see where they're coming from. If you've lost your job, if you're struggling to pay bills, provide for your family, can't afford groceries, it really sets a toll on you, and it can really push you off that edge. And they also said the parental support. So we spoke about before how we spend a lot of time in school. We spend a lot of time at home also. We need that support from our parents, from our entire family. And it goes back to the community again. Without that support and guidance, you can go down the wrong path.
Thank you. But people might say, are young persons looking for a job? We talk about the fact that, you might get involved in violent activities because the education system is difficult or you don't have parental support. But are young people looking for jobs? We always say unemployment is at an ultimate high. But do you think our young persons are looking for a job? Are they just deviant? Chade, I want to hear from you. What do you think the situation is?
I am so happy that you chose me. Yes, please. I can tell you for sure that young people are looking for jobs. But I think the main problem is experience. When you look at advertisements for persons, employers, they're saying, oh, you need XYZ experience. Where are we going to get this experience from? I think that they need to be a little bit more open-minded. This person who just came out of university or secondary school, who did keep, that have the qualifications to take on these jobs, why not just give them a chance? So I think that is the main factor that causes persons then to go into this deviant behavior, because they're not given the chance, because you have these things work experience, that you need X amount of work experience. So I do believe that young persons are trying. They're out there. I actually printed for a young man in my community. He's trying so hard to get a job. I actually printed up his CV and his cover letter for him. And I think too, when you do get a job, it's probably a job on the lower end, and then persons want to come and underpay you, or then they want you to do as internship, and then you're not getting paid for your. I do think that young people are looking, but I think that they're having a significant difficulty, and I just asking our employers to just be open-minded and give them a chance, because you never know. Give them that room to grow in the organization.
So do you think that's the issue then? People don't value young people and value their work. They want you to have 7 years of experience, but then they want you to come in rather, and they don't pay you as much as you want or expected. Do you think there's an issue of persons not valuing the work of young people?
Well, I would say so, but I wouldn't really say that they're not they're not valuing it. I think that they're seeing it more, but because then you don't have that experience, they're using it then to their advantage. So I remember I had applied, and they told us straight, if this person has more experience than you, then you're going to be paid less. So I think that they see that you have the potential, but they're using it to their advantage because of that experience, like that factor. They're trying to say, okay, well, you just come out, so I can't give you this amount of money because you're lacking some experience. So I do agree with you in that, in terms of, but I think that they're just here using it to kind of their advantage to.
I appreciate that, and I'm happy that you provided that perspective. And we want to see young persons supported by their communities, and we mentioned that already. And I think it's important to mention that the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment does have a youth entrepreneurship program to provide young persons with certain skills to help them put themselves out there into the world of work, or even just looking for a job. Very quickly, Danielle, I want you to comment then on what do you see some other community organizations being able to provide in terms of support, whether it's a church or community group? What do you see them being able to provide very quickly?
Maybe for young people in terms of job opportunities and stuff
In
like
terms
that.
of job opportunity or wholesome development?
Okay. I think that as a church community or just a community in general, we have like an edge. We have the opportunity to allow young people to grow and develop. And we talk about allowing young people to use their gifts and their talents. There's so many talented persons in Barbados who just are not recognized. They're not given the opportunity to share their talents or to share the gifts that they may have. So I think within our communities or within our churches and stuff like that, we can create programs or we can create different activities that will allow young persons to showcase their talents, that will allow young persons to showcase their giftings and their abilities, so that we can promote it and we can get it out into the world, allow it to go regionally or internationally, and allow young persons um, the things that young people do, whether it be something in the arts, whether they are creatives, whether they create and make like trinkets or gifts or different items. I think that we can create programs that will allow and foster that, as well as developing the talents that persons that young people have that are hidden. I think we can create programs like that that will allow young people to share what they have with the world.
Thank you very much. So we'll take a
And
short
if
break,
I
and then when we come back, we'll look at the comments from some of our audience members and discuss that as we prepare to wrap up.
You don't have to, alright. Like this, like you're doing something like this that's very informative, but they have to have like a little entertainment with it, like probably like some um interviews with some artists and like some other stuff. Have a look at entertainment with it. But just like this, it's great because it's a way that the youth like ourselves can speak our minds and really get it out there. 'Cause like I said a lot of times, we can't really have any outlets like that to speak. So something like this is good. Yeah, definitely, we should have more.
Welcome back to our conversation on the Listen Up Accord. This is our final episode for a short while, and I'm reminding you that Listen Up Accord is brought in collaboration with the Division of Youth Affairs and CBC Barbados. Guys, we had an interesting video comment there just now. You know, there are not enough spaces for young persons to be able to speak up, speak out, and vent. What has your experience been like through your report, providing a platform for young persons to share their views? Has there been a significant uptake, or would you like to see more young persons sharing their thoughts and views on that platform? Khadija?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes.
Oh, okay. Just wasn't sure. Yeah. Right. So there is, we do have a lot of reporters that have signed up, but we do need more, and we do need guys to sign up. We need, it's a great initiative. The problem I find is that there is many initiatives, but individuals don't feel inclined or interested in joining these initiatives, and I think that's mainly because they believe that these initiatives expect too much of them. I know I had a friend once that said, why you report? Why is your report important? It's just another initiative. The ministry is not going to listen to you. And I'm like, well, if you really sit down and you watch the lives, you follow the pages, you become interested and you ask questions, you will realize that it's not just the initiatives that the ministry is going to ignore, because we've gotten the reach so far. And we don't expect much of you. We just ask that you fill out the polls, you sign up the reporters, you encourage your friends to do it. We recently partnered with UWK Hill, and we recently partnered with BCC Gill as well, and they're on our team now as well. Chade is a proud campus ambassador as well, and these things help young people to become interested in it. Recently I find that we've gotten a lot more people to sign up, and because they've been asking questions. So I think that is one thing that we need to realize in the youth, that they need to be more aware. They need to ask questions. Don't just sit down and assume things about certain initiatives. Ask questions and become more aware of what their intentions are.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, we do have at the Ministry of Youth as well a Pathways program, which provides opportunities for young people to be exposed to training and job preparation. And we currently have a core of young persons who are going through that program. It carries an area of work experience, provides you with a component to mitigate those who don't have that experience, and we just discussed that. And also we want you to see, or we want young persons to see, volunteering as another way to gain some type of job experience or even experience in the work field. That is also important. So as we prepare to wrap up, I'm going to pick your brain for a couple minutes about our education system. Now, we want our education system to be fit for purpose. And we're currently in the space of redeveloping or redesigning our education system and making sure that it's fit for purpose. We want to create international students or international citizens. What then do you think is necessary as we make that transition to keep in mind to ensure that all young persons are captured in that system? Michael, I'm going to go to you.
Okay, so, not very sure where to start, but I do agree that yes, we need to do more for our youth. We need to prepare them for this changing global world. And we know right now, in this technological age, technology is very important in the pandemic. So that's one aspect. Are you technologically savvy? Everyone cannot be, but the way how the world is changing, you have to have some sort of caliber or some sort of efficiency in that area, unfortunately. Other than that, we need to truly understand where else the world is going. Look at the trends, see what other countries are doing successfully, and not try to copy exactly, but see how it can be adapted. Would it work here? Do we need it? So, yeah, I think we can do so much, and I would say that we should not rush it. We need to take our time, do the necessary research, so that our youth can be the future leaders who can go into those global countries and lead and also represent Barbados and the Caribbean.
All right, the expert said it here first. We need to take our time and make sure that we capture all our young persons. Um, as an
If I can
organization,
add, can
has
I
your
add
report?
something,
Sorry,
please,
go ahead.
Pierre?
Yes, yes.
Um, I was just going to add, and I do agree with what Michael is saying, totally agree, in terms of not rushing it. I think we also need to listen to our youth because we're talking about youth having voices and youth being able to share things that matter to them, right? I think that's important for us and the ministers of education, etc., to listen to what young people want, what it is that they desire, what it is that they think they need that will help them to navigate these next 2 years where we are developing and reforming our education system. And it's key not to rush it, but it's also key to listen to what their ideas and their thoughts are, as well as the ideas and thoughts of teachers. Right? So that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. There's a key saying, there should be nothing for us without us. And I think that's very apt in redeveloping and redesigning our education system.
Yeah.
How has your report tended to this? Have you taken an opportunity to look at the views of young persons on middle schools, whether they want the same primary to secondary school system? What has your experience been like in terms of the numbers around the approaches to the redesigning and redeveloping of the education system? And if you haven't gone that far as yet, do you have any plans to step into that area?
We've not conducted a poll surrounding that as yet,
Mhm.
but I can only imagine that with all of the hype and the changes that's happening, that it will soon become a poll. But we would have looked at in terms of the blended and the face-to-face approaches to
Mhm.
learning. We would have did in our education poll, we would have asked you reporters whether or not they would have preferred or they would prefer a blended approach to school or whether they prefer face-to-face or strictly online, and majority of the persons responded saying that they hope that they would have a blended approach. Not many agreed to the totally online, and not many agreed to face to face, but they wanted or they said that a blended approach would work. So I don't know if that's something that we can look into in the future and how it would look in terms of having a blended approach in our schools. Not sure how it would look, but I don't know if it's something that we can look into and try to probably hash out and develop.
Mhm. So, Shade, what do you think? So you've heard that some young persons are interested in a blended approach. What do you think that might look like? How do you think that might work for young persons in Barbados?
Well, I think that's going to be actually really great from first-hand experience. I have a cousin here. She goes to secondary school, and she
Mhm.
finds like she loves online for because some persons, as you may know, they like the comfort of their own home. They like quiet. They like noise. I, for one, I like being here alone because I find that I grasp information better. But for her, she's in secondary school. She's in third form right now. So third form math, that's where everything is very packed on. So I find like for subjects like math, chemistry, and science, we really do need for students to go face to face so that they can interact with the material more. And then she also said that in class I will be able to raise my hand and ask teachers. I find that they don't
Ah.
like students don't like to like unmute their mics and speak online. So that is a problem that I was seeing. So I find that really the blended approach will be a little bit easier for some students as it relates to those subjects. But then I find that some students are very comfortable in their own space and learning. So I think that would be a great initiative to help persons, to improve their overall student experience.
And that's another thing to think about, the fact that there are different persons with different learning styles who may work better at home and some may work better in the classroom. Some want to be able to raise their hand and some want to be able to click that little button and say, I want to ask a question. And I think that's important to consider, and I think that's something else that your report can look into. Just for our audience, because we see in the comments persons are saying they want young persons, they want people to use your report polls. Can you then describe for us, finally, how that works? So the information that you receive into the dissemination of it, how does that work as a report system?
Okay, Khadija,
Okay, I
take that?
guess.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
you go.
I can
Shade
tackle
or
it.
Michael
So,
can take it.
So yes, the process. So basically, we use social media. So that's WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and also Twitter. So you sign up for your reporter. So basically, reach out to us on our pages and send a direct message or a message in WhatsApp. Once you've signed up, you have access to all of our polls by typing a simple keyword. So, for example, the crime poll that I mentioned, the keyword was crime. So once you type that in, you're directed to that poll, and then you just complete that poll, and the information is stored on the database. And once you don't opt out, you will continue to have access to future polls on relevant topics and issues that um, are necessary for the youth in Barbados. So that's in a general sense how the polls work and how your report works.
Thank you for that feedback. And just as we begin to wrap up, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to just share your final comments and thoughts around youth development. Now, Listen Up Accord has been on for a couple of months, and we've covered topics along education, COVID-19, vaccine. We've covered things like anti-violence, mental health, the development of children and young persons. And that's the whole community of it. That's the whole space of it. All these conversations are to lead to the development of young persons. This collaboration between the Division of Youth Affairs and CBC Barbados is for the development of young persons. What are your thoughts then, finally, about what do we need to do or how we can continue to have these conversations?
Well, I believe that I think we should continue to speak up. Don't stop. Even if it's an issue where they're not listening to you, they're not implementing what you are speaking up about, don't stop. Because your voice goes a long way. Don't just give up because they don't listen to you at the first time. You speak out, you speak out, you speak out continuously until they get annoyed of your voice and they decide to implement the things that you're looking for them to implement. So I think that is something that we all need to remember, and I think that's something we also struggle with because as individuals, as young individuals, once the teacher doesn't hear you, you decide not to continue your
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
You decide to be quiet or mute, as we're in an online environment, mute back your mic. So that is the issue that we have, and that's the issue we need to resolve. We need to
Thank you.
continue speaking up no matter what. So I
Thank
think
you.
that's just what I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Khadija. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to wrap up now. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to the U Report team. Thank you to CBC Barbados and the Division of Youth Affairs for putting on this conversation. We hope to see you, the audience, soon for our next iteration of the Listen Up Accord. Do have a good evening. Yep.